Guys. Go ahead.
First 2 days in, what do you think?
Just 2 days in. Trying to get everybody back into it, get into the groove. Long days, long meetings. Everyone's getting their camp shape back so you can stay up through these meetings. And guys were amped up yesterday. Same thing today, and I know they will be tomorrow when we put those pads on.
You made some changes as far as when walkthrough is conducted from a year ago, correct?
I don't think so.
Oh, I thought you had a break between walkthrough and the actual practice.
Oh, we practice in the morning and we do a walkthrough in the afternoon. The pre-practice we do a 7-minute walkthrough for special teams and a little 10-minute walkthrough for O and D. But we did that last year for the first couple days, and then we ended up cutting it off. But it's just part of practice.
Will you continue doing that?
Right now. But eventually, when we want to take some time off, maybe make it shorter. We always get that walkthrough in the afternoon, so eventually that's something we could take off.
What do you make of Jimmy's first 2 days of camp? Yesterday, it seemed like he had a little bit harder time with his efficiency today. Not too many balls hit the ground. Just what do you make of his play?
It's 2 days back. It's early. I thought I would almost saw it opposite. I thought we were better yesterday than today. I don't know about completions wise, but and I'll get in there to watch the film in a second. But I thought the defense had 2 real good days. Did a little better than the offense yesterday. I thought today was a big difference. I was a little more disappointed today. The whole O came out just a little too many MAs, too many offsides, things like that, and I don't think the offense had a very good rhythm today.
What did you see from Matt Breida today? Seemed like he was kind of finding his way out there. And what are you expecting from him during this camp?
Matt's real consistent. He ran like that throughout OTAs. He ran like that yesterday, and it seemed like he ran pretty good today. Matt hits it hard. He goes full speed, whether we have pads on or not. He's going to find that hole, and when we do give him some space, he hit it hard. And I think there was a few runs today that we gave him a little bit of space on, and I think that's why everyone saw him open up a couple times.
We saw once you get the crowd riled up before practice, is that going to be a rookie assignment every practice now?
I think so. I didn't start it, but I think the guys were. I heard that they're starting a rookie hype machine thing, so they're going to designate a rookie to get the crowd going every day. He did do a good job. For that to be the first one, for someone to have to get better after that, it could get pretty bad, so we might have to calm him down eventually.
Who would be the rookie that you'd be most concerned about breaking character and doing that?
Last year Ruben might have tackled someone, so that would have made me nervous. And I would have thought McGlinchey, but he kind of surprised me out there. He went up into the stands and everything, so I don't think they were expecting that much to hype him up, but his effort was good, and maybe tomorrow we can hype the offense up a little bit more instead of the fans.
Eric McKinnon said yesterday that when he first got the playbook, it was pretty overwhelming, but he's doing really comfortable with that. Have you seen a lot of progress from OTAs to now with him?
And still we're only 2 days in, so I'll tell you as we get going more. These first 2 days at training camp, and we do 7 days of install throughout OTAs, and so you get OTA 1 is install 1, and you go all the way up to 7, and then OTA 8 and 9 is different. And then training camp, we start the exact same thing over again. All right, so our install yesterday, and then today was the exact same as OTA 1 and 2. And so it's always just easier for the guys to go through it a second time. That's what's so hard when those rookies, like last year, missed OTAs because now it was their first time. So just Jarek works so hard and studies so hard. So he was prepared into OTAs, but he had to go through the learning curve of doing it physically. And now just naturally, when you go through the exact same thing twice, it's a little bit easier.
What were the things in practice you didn't like?
I just thought we got out to a slow start. We came out, had a couple offsides early, had a couple missed assignments early, and we're not calling plays out there right now. Everything's scripted and stuff, so you should know what's being expected. And just a few early mistakes early in practice, and one thing leads to another, and it's hard to regain that. I just want us to come out a little more focused early on, and so you get beat, but I don't want to beat ourselves.
Are you talking both sides of the ball?
I was talking mainly offense. Yeah, no, I thought the defense was better today than yesterday, and I thought they did real good yesterday too.
There were a couple of times when the offense would go to the line of scrimmage, say something, and then go back. Was it just one player not knowing his assignment?
Yeah, that happens when you call a play and you come out of the huddle, and you got 3 receivers in there. They're changing positions every play, and then you got 2 guys go to X, and because one guy was X last play, but we moved him to Z. Just things like that. You got to re-huddle up on, and it gets sloppy, and it kind of takes out the flow of practice, and that's frustrating things that players and coaches got to be more on.
How would you, as far as Lycan Tomlinson, How would you, in looking back at last year, how would you kind of describe the trajectory of his season?
We were so impressed with Lincoln last year because, similar to Jimmy in terms of, we traded for Lincoln, I want to say it was like 7 days before our first game. And he didn't start that first game, but he started that second game and every game after that. And for him to come in, he was a very athletic lineman that we did like his skill set, but he never really had played in the scheme where he really opened it up and ran. And so it was totally opposite what he'd ever been asked to do. And that's as hard for an lineman to make an adjustment to me to really any position on our team. And what he was able to do in week 2 just to get into play, and then how different he was in week 8, then to how different he was in week 16. He was a guy who, you're going to take coaching, the coaches are going to do it, but when you get thrown in that situation, you got to really be able to figure out on your own to a degree. Because there's not all the time like there is in the offseason. And Lincoln to improve that much throughout the year as an O-lineman and a totally different scheme than he's ever done was very encouraging to us. We saw the same thing throughout the offseason. We thought he had a very good OTAs, and that's why we were extremely excited to get him locked up here for a little bit before it started.
When you say kind of open up and run, do you think that suited him better than some sort of, I don't know, it was a power scheme?
Yeah, we did. Anytime you can have, he's extremely athletic and talented, and I think that's why he was a first-round draft choice. And everyone has different philosophies and different schemes and stuff, but I would say ours, out of any, allows O-linemen to really open up and run more than any others. And when you do have that speed and talent and stuff, it doesn't mean you're going to always block people well, but it means you can use a different skill set or show it on tape, and that's stuff you couldn't really see. He didn't do it much in college. He didn't do it much in Detroit, but it's fit him well here. But it takes guys a while to learn how to play a certain way that they've never done before, and that's what was so impressive about him.
I don't know how much you were talking before that trade. I assume a little, but did Martin Mayhew play a role in that since he drafted him?
Yeah, Martin, you never want to – it's always scary to trade for a guy that you don't know. And so it always starts with what we see on tape. And we take everyone's opinion from everyone up there in personnel, to our O-line coaches, to myself, to McDaniel. We all look at all the O-line, get our opinions. I remember I evaluated Lincoln hard when I was at Atlanta, just coming out of Duke. So I had a very good idea of him athletically. And then when you know someone who's been in a building with them, who drafted him, obviously he thought highly of him too because he drafted him. But you get to know kind of what type of person he is, what he's like, what has happened there, and gives you more confidence in knowing what you're getting.
Kind of a random question. There's a story about you getting a care package from one of your favorite musicians. What happened there? How did that all come about?
Well, someone said on a podcast let that out a while ago, and yeah, it was pretty messed up. But he let that out, and so people heard, and I think it got to him. And it was funny because Pierre came up to me right when we got back, and he's like, "Hey, somebody sent me something," and I guess his manager or someone knew Pierre, so they asked Pierre if they sent him something if he could hand it to me, and so Pierre brought it to me right when we got back, and it was cool. I was excited.
What'd you get exactly?
Just a couple posters signed from him, one to me and one to my son, and then 2 CDs signed to both of us. Mine has the cuss words. The one he gave to my son was edited. So he's very thoughtful. It was cool. So I can actually play it for my son, and it was pretty neat. He was pumped when I showed him when I got home, but he still doesn't know how cool it actually is.
So is that really the genesis of your son's name?
Yes. If I told you it was 100% that, my wife would kill me. My wife really liked the name, and at the time that I was just infatuated with. When I got in the NFL, I always had to sit in rooms and break down film and draw up plays, and started when I was in Tampa with Gruden. The only thing that gets you through it is just sitting there and listening to music. And I started out when I was doing that, it was the Carter 1, Wayne's first CD. He's got 4 of them, 5 if Birdman ever lets it out. But so the Carter 1 started it, and I was just always into that. And when my wife told me she liked the name Carter, it was easy for me because I was pretty obsessed at the time. He gave me the Carter 4. He gave my son Carter the Carter 3. It was cool. I was pumped.
I'm a Carter 1 guy.
Oh, me too.
Robert Saleh said yesterday, Kella Witherspoon looks more like a grown man this year. Have you noticed the same thing, and what type of steps in his progression have you seen him take?
Yeah, definitely. It happened. It happened almost halfway through last year. We knew we drafted a big corner, and I swear he looked twice as big halfway through the year out there. And then, he started getting his confidence, especially when he got to play. And, Akello's a very smart person. He realized that he had the talent to do it. He got to go out there and feel it. And I think Akello knows that he has a very high ceiling. And when he knows that, he also doesn't mind working. And he spent this offseason just possessed to own his craft. He works as hard as anyone. He's very intelligent and wants to think everything through, so he's always asking questions. I think Sherm has helped him a lot just to pick his brain too, and he's going for it, and he's making sure that he's going to be the best he can.
What specifically do you think Sherman, how has Sherman helped him?
Well, I just think, I think Akello's a unique dude. I always say he's kind of like a Gandhi type approach. He's very chill, but he thinks about everything. He's never just going to, if you're going to coach him, he wants to know why. He wants to understand everything, and those are the type of guys that I like because I think they're capable of getting a lot better. And then when you bring in someone like Sherm, who I think is very similar to that, different personalities, but wants to know the why, wants to think about everything. And now Akello has a player who's played in his scheme that he's not just asking Halfley 1,000 questions, or Sala or coming to myself. Now he has a player to go through it too because the player's done it and done it at a very high level.
What kind of improvements have you seen from C.J. Beathard from the end of year one to where he is now?
Just comfortable. I think C.J. has such a good feel of the offense, just like Nick Mullins does. They went through this whole thing last year, and now just to see him this year, especially after going through phase 1 and phase 2 and OTAs, it's very easy for them, and they don't have to think as much. It's a lot easier for Jimmy now than it was last year, but I promise you it'll be even easier next year after going through a second off season. So he's much more comfortable. And, I've always thought very highly of CJ. I thought he played very well last year, and we put him in as tough of a situation as I think a rookie could be put in. And sometimes that breaks guys, and CJ is mentally and physically tough as really any quarterback I've ever been around. And he doesn't care how many times he gets hit. If he makes a bad play, that guy believes in himself and he works at it, so he always corrects his mistakes, and that's why I think he will always get better.
Seemed like the ball's coming out of his hand better than it did a year ago.
Yeah, I think that he's more decisive. There's zero hesitation, and that's what we liked about him in college too. But when you're very decisive and that's how you are, sometimes you make mistakes. And when you're a decisive guy who makes mistakes, that can be a pick, all right? It can be a misread. You don't know what's going to happen. But now I think he's doing it more consistently and seeing it more because when he does make mistakes, he learns from them because he thinks about it and learns how to correct it. And that's why I think he will always continue to prove when he has a bad day, it usually makes him better because he learns from it.
But the reality with CJ, obviously, Jimmy signs a 5-year contract, CJ has a 4-year deal. In an ideal world, does he, how aware of that reality is he, and how is he sort of responding to that situation, just knowing that maybe, his starting opportunity could be elsewhere?
I think, CJ is a smart guy and he understands, I think, what everyone else does. I think it was somewhat hard for Jimmy, for CJ when Jimmy came here because, Jimmy had a pretty good opportunity and Jimmy came and played extremely well. And I think everyone could see that, and I think CJ did too. And I think that made it a little bit easier because Jimmy played at such a high level. But I think CJ does believe in himself and believes he can start in this league, and I know I do too. And I think this is a good thing for CJ, that he can get better through this stuff. I know he wants reps, and he's going to get them in practice. He's going to get a lot in the preseason, and as the cliche everyone says, you're always one play away from starting. And I hope that never happens because you don't want something to happen to Jimmy. But I know CJ will be ready if he does. And if not, just the way he works, he will get better regardless. And there's plenty of stories that people know of good things happening to backup quarterbacks, regardless of where it's at.
In terms of Pierre Garcon, is this offense still set up in a way where he's probably going to be the most targeted guy or the biggest producer? And what do you want to see out of him this camp? It's like his 11th camp.
Just to be the same guy I've always known and to do his job. Last year there was a lot more pressure on P when we started out. He was the only guy out there who had ever started before. Marquise hadn't started ever before on the other side. All the other guys were rookies. P was the only guy that I felt could handle all that pressure because he's been through it. And then when Pierre got hurt, there was a lot of pressure put on guys like Bourne, on Kittle, on Marquise, and I don't think all of them were quite ready for that yet. But I do think that's why we got a little bit better, right? Because we had no choice. Those guys had to go through that. They fought through it because they're the right guys, and it made them better. Now going into this year, we have lots of guys who I think can handle it. And when it comes to targets and stuff, we'll see what the coverages are. We hope to get everyone the ball, but there isn't just one guy on our team that's, hey, we're feeding this guy every play. We're going to put guys out there. We're going to give everyone an opportunity to get open, and we're going to see what the coverage is and coach the quarterback where to go with the ball.
Marquise seemed to have a pretty strong first 2 days of practice. Today, not so much. Obviously, I think he had a fumbled pass. How do you feel about his progression and the progress he's made, considering how he closed out last season on a strong note?
Yeah, I think Marquise, we've talked about a lot. Everyone knows his talent, and he's always believed it, that he could do it, but it's hard until you do it, and that's what he battled through last year. And it was a little bit up and down, and then it finally clicked, as everyone knows, and he finished the year out strong, and that's led to this offseason. I think he's a much more confident guy. He knows he can do it. It's not just about saying he can now, because he's done it, and I think he's been a leader on our team. I think he's battled through a lot of adversity, and Keese is a guy who has been extremely consistent since that time, since halfway through the year, and he's a guy who we count on a lot.
All right.
All right, thanks, guys.